The snow-covered wilderness stretched out before her like an endless canvas of white. The trees standing like skeletal sentinels against the grey sky. Princess Eliana trudged through the knee-deep drifts. Her fur-lined cloak wrapped tightly around her, the cold seeping into her bones. It had been months since she'd been exiled from her kingdom, forced to flee for her life after her father's brutal regime had turned against her. She'd thought she'd found some measure of peace in this desolate landscape. But the arrival of a mysterious letter had shattered that illusion. The letter had been delivered by a hooded figure, who'd vanished into the trees as suddenly as he'd appeared. Eliana had unfolded the parchment, her heart racing as she recognized the seal of her family's crest. The words danced across the page. A message from her brother, Prince Aaron, who'd been presumed dead. He was alive, and he needed her help. Their father's regime was crumbling, and Aaron had become the leader of a rebellion to overthrow the tyrant. But there was a catch: their father had taken a hostage, a young girl who was the daughter of one of the rebellion's key allies. Aaron begged Eliana to return to the kingdom, to use her knowledge of the palace to help him rescue the girl and bring their father to justice. Eliana felt a pang of guilt and loyalty as she read the words. She'd always been close to her brother, and the thought of abandoning him now was unbearable. But she'd also seen the atrocities their father had committed, the innocent lives he'd destroyed. She knew that if she returned to the kingdom, she'd be putting herself in grave danger, and potentially sacrificing her own life. As she stood there, the snow swirling around her, she felt the weight of her decision bearing down on her. She thought of all the people she'd lost, all the loved ones she'd been forced to leave behind. Her mother, who'd died in childbirth. Her friends, who'd been executed for speaking out against the regime. The weight of her grief threatened to crush her. As the days passed, Eliana struggled to make a decision. She knew that if she didn't act, the girl would likely be killed, and the rebellion would be crushed. But she also knew that if she returned to the kingdom, she'd be putting herself in harm's way. She'd always been a survivor, but this time, she wasn't sure if she had the strength to keep going. One night, as she huddled by a fire, she felt a presence behind her. She turned to see a figure emerging from the trees. It was the hooded messenger who'd brought her the letter. He pulled back his hood, revealing a face she recognized. It was Marcus, one of her father's most trusted advisors. Marcus told her that he'd been secretly working with the rebellion, feeding them information and helping them to plan their attack. He begged her to return to the kingdom, to use her knowledge to help them bring down the regime. Eliana felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could make a difference. Maybe she could find a way to bring justice to her family, and to the people who'd been hurt by her father's cruelty. As she looked into Marcus's eyes, she knew what she had to do. She would return to the kingdom. No matter the cost, she would fight for justice, and for the people she loved. The journey back to the kingdom was long and arduous, but Eliana felt a sense of purpose that she'd never felt before. She knew that she was taking a risk, but she also knew that she had to try. As she approached the palace, she felt a sense of trepidation. What would she find inside? Would she be able to rescue the girl and bring her father to justice? She took a deep breath and stepped forward into the unknown. The palace loomed before her, its walls towering above her like a monolith. She knew that she was walking into danger, but she also knew that she was walking towards something more, towards redemption, and towards peace. As she entered the palace, Eliana felt a sense of calm wash over her. She knew that she'd made the right decision, no matter what lay ahead. She moved through the corridors, her heart pounding in her chest, until she reached the throne room. Her father sat on the throne, the girl standing beside him, a look of terror in her eyes. Eliana felt a surge of anger, but she also felt a sense of sadness. Her father was a broken man, consumed by his own cruelty. She knew that she couldn't save him, but she could save the girl. With a swift movement, She drew a dagger from her belt and plunged it into her father's heart. The girl was free, and the rebellion would triumph. Eliana felt a sense of peace wash over her as she realized that she'd finally found closure. She'd lost so much, but she'd also found something more, a sense of purpose and a sense of justice.